So from 0.6 trillion to 1.2 trillion looks really mind-boggling and too ambitious. I mean, how do you see this happening?
No, while it's ambitious, let's say, like you talked about exports, for example. The automobile components industry last year was targeted by the minister, and they accepted the target to make a roadmap of how $20 billion exports last year could go to $100 billion by 2030. The construction equipment industry, of which you and I are a part, also in these 6 years is looking at least doubling their revenue base, of which exports is a significant part. And I'm sure electronics, and we've heard about electronics, hardware, etc. So it may not happen. But sector by sector, if we break it down, that everybody has a target to pursue in whichever sector he or she is playing. And then find a way, a roadmap to get there. Is it mind-boggling? The answer is yes. Have we done it before? No. But unless we take these bold, ambitious figures and say, what is my role in these ambitious figures, we could well remain flatlined for the future.
I agree. I think we need to have some target. And I believe India as a nation, through various initiatives, we are trying our roadmaps also. But so can you give us a sense, as you see things from CII perspective also, which is more like a organization which is actually like the conduit between the real industry as well as the government and the policymakers. So what are the various steps we are doing as a nation? Some of it probably is already being done. So if you can help us to understand about that.
Yeah, sure, SP, definitely. But let me again go back to and answer the question, but let me at least go back and give you examples of product-based nations. And we know them, but if you list them down, USA is, Germany is, France is, Japan is, we've grown up hearing about them. These are product-based nations because they cover the entire spectrum of the smile curve. But when you look at the last maybe 2 decades or so, South Korea, China, even Taiwan are transforming into product-based nations. So when you look at then product-based companies in these nations, we know them. Samsung, great brand. There's LG. And Samsung started from a trading company. It was just a trading company. China's Huawei, we know that it might be banned, etc., but it was a small telecom equipment provider and is a global tech leader now. Taiwan's HTC, or now, of course, in semiconductors, TSMC, but then again, I don't know how much branding they have. The brand is elsewhere. But definitely HTC. They've manufactured to become a global smartphone brand. So there are many examples that exist. Nike, Adidas, H&M. They source their manufacturing, which is the physical part, but the branding, the designing, the distribution, the outlets, that's all part of what these apparel companies and footwear companies go around with all around the world. Okay, so coming to your question as to what has India done, which is, let's say, in the last 10, 14 years, India done. Make in India has become a very important part of the government's program. And in this budget, just let's say 2 or 3 weeks ago, a national manufacturing mission has been announced. What the contours are, we don't know, but there's certainly a recognition of that. Now, Make in India, when it was announced, I think in 2014, it essentially spoke about establishing India as a global manufacturing hub. Again, target of 25% to GDP contribution of manufacturing and 100 million new jobs. Now, that's very important. It's important to define how many jobs is each company, each sector, and therefore the nation creating, and therefore what are the skills required for that. Then, of the recent past, no rocket science there, there's the PLI scheme. While it's called production-linked scheme, it's really a sales-linked scheme. It's only if you sell do you get that additional benefit. But 14 key sectors have been identified, and it's succeeded in some sectors, perhaps not yet in other sectors. But it's in a way to incentivize, to keep selling so that you can keep producing. Then you have a focus on deep tech and emphasis on semiconductors, where a massive amount of incentive is being given for trying to capture the entire value chain, from design through to chips, and then coming to packaging and marketing as well. And there is a lot of interest over there. There is a quantum mission that's been launched as well. Infrastructure development in the well, it's there. We've seen the focus on infrastructure in terms of physical infrastructure, roads, highways, ports, railway stations, etc. The government has enhanced public spending virtually in every budget, not by 5 or 7%, but sometimes by 30, 35%. Now it's, let's say, reached somewhat of a peak, but that amount of money was significant. So infrastructure development, but in the last budget, the creation of infrastructure parks or industrial parks. What people want, those who want to manufacture, want a plug and play kind of facility. They also want some kind of social infrastructure. So not only the physical infrastructure, but social infrastructure, schools, hospitals, etc. So industrial parks is a good way of creating that requisite space so that people who want to invest come in, and employees then can come in much easier, because they don't have to worry about the softer aspects and they can focus on their work. And then we have the Skill India missions. Now, this is to equip, let's say, 400 million individuals with industry-relevant skills to address workforce gaps. Now, all of it may not have happened, but there are a series of councils at least working on skills. And there is, let's say, a recognition that skills is perhaps the way to go for a larger part of our people, especially since technology is changing so rapidly. So there's lots happening from, let's say, from the government standpoint. The action takes place at the states. And some states have been more proactive, and we've seen that not only in the last 10 years, but for 3 or 4 decades. We know that there are certain states which are proactive as far as promoting manufacturing is concerned. Some of them have automobile hubs, some of them have capital goods hubs, some of them have hosiery hubs. So there are these hubs being created, which there's nothing wrong with that. We must have specific areas, specific geographies in the country where there are inherent strengths of our people. And those then become cluster-like hubs for those particular sectors. Not everybody has to do everything. But that's the way India is growing. Back to you, SP.